acetone on the ZSM-5 zeolite.
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing us to change this program. As you have heard, this theme is a little out of scope of this conference, and we were interested in the reactions of methanol or ethanol with the surface species formed from acetone on ZSM-5 zeolite. The rather remote aim of these studies was to help to understand the reaction mechanism of the formation of metal-substituted pyridines on zeolites. This reaction can proceed via interaction of methanol, ammonia, and acetone on ZSM-5 zeolites, as was described about 3 years ago by Professor Van Beckum and colleagues. So the reactions of ammonia aren't explicitly included in this contribution. I would like to use some of these experiments to support the assumptions on the reaction route. And I will say beforehand that the assumptions made are the alkylation of acetone surface species by methanol or by ethanol, and very easy aromatization of alkylated condensed acetone species. For this investigation, we have used the so-called temperature program absorption with conversion TPDC. It means we absorb very small amounts of reactants and then we desorb them by program heating. And during this program heating, the majority of the current reactant was converted to products. And we were interested in the composition of surface species and the composition of the products. At first from acetone alone, then with addition of methanol and also naturally only of the reactions of methanol and ethanol with ZSM-5 zeolite. Experimentally, we have used ZSM-5 with rather low silicon to aluminum ratio, small amounts, a little lower for infrared and gas product composition studies, and high for NMR studies. And always we absorbed on this zeolite 0.2 millimoles per gram of acetone. It means that about 1/5 of the structural age groups was covered with acetone. And then here is shown the DPDC of acetone using the analysis of released products which were directly to the chemical mass spectrometer. And here is shown the total pressure in the vacuum chamber in the dependence of temperature. You can see that up to about 130 degrees centigrade, no desorption products were released. Then the desorption starts at about 500 degrees centigrade. Practically all of the zeolite was desorbed. Just before the beginning of the desorption, we introduced vapors of alcohols in the amount which is here written. So the overall amount of acetone and alcohols was lower, almost 1/2 of the number of OH groups. And the surface species were studied at certain temperature stages and were studied with acetone this Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy and carbon 13 mass NMR, and this is ethyl alcohol only by mass spectroscopy. The composition of the products of acetone alone is seen in this transparency. Here we also interacted at the temperature of about 120 or 130 degrees centigrade. We interacted the temperature heating, and at constant temperature here when the acetone was alone, we didn't introduce anything, but we kept closed the absorption vessel for 20 minutes, and then we resumed the temperature program. The composition of the products was the same as result of interaction. You can see that the main product was isobutene, some acetone, below aromatics, C7, 8, 9, and some aline. This is the first slide. Here is the same, can be seen on the slide. Yes. No, on the first slide. I want to show how we think that the reaction proceeds, and this slide is only to compare the products released with the reaction with acetone. We think that the acetone is first protonated with this hydrogen of the structure OH groups, and this protonated acetone is reacts with acetone to diacetone alcohol, and after the dehydration, acetyl oxide. These reactions are well known from homogeneous organic reaction, acid catalyzed, and all these steps were also found on the surface using infrared measurements and all carbon 13 mass NMR. And here, when this surface, and also in under normal stream conditions at atmospheric pressures, these intermediates were detected in the gaseous phase. It's the first published by Chang and by Jacobs et al., and also in previous works of our group. But under such small coverages of acetone, these species up to methyl peroxide are detected in the gaseous phase. But now the reaction route from this point differs from the organic homogeneous reactions, because this surface species is cracked to isobutene, as you can see here, and acetate-like remainder, which is composed of CO2, again acetone, and the proton of the OH group is recovered. Acetone re-enters the cycle, isobutene is evolved to the gaseous phase to the gaseous. This reaction route is supported by carbon 13 labeling. When we labeled acetone either in a ketone group or in this methyl group, or if we use mixtures of labeled and unlabeled acetone, we always obtain the isotopic composition of isobutene such that it corresponds with the rupture of in this position. In opposite to the secondary products, which are especially aromatics, where the composition, isotopic composition was quite random, as the best fitting was as the reaction of the fragments of 6 acetone molecules entered into this reaction. So its opposite phase F is assumed in homogeneous organic reaction, where, for instance, mesethylene is assumed to be formed via acetylization of 3 acetone molecules. This wasn't the case on the reaction on zeolite. Now, what happens? Yes, now I haven't spoken about this alene. We assume that this alene is formed via dehydration of non-condensed acetone. And this assumption is supported by when we have reacted ammonia with this acetone species. In this case, the condensation reaction were respected, and this is the same as here, and it is shown without ammonia. And this ammonia, you see how the amount of alene increased. We think that the condensation was restricted, and especially the reaction of uncondensed acetone species. Okay. Now, what happens when we introduced methanol to acetone species at this temperature of about 130 degrees centigrade? We were especially interested in the reaction of ketone group because in organic reactions one can assume that some hemiacetals or acetals can be formed, but we on NMR spectra we see that the protonized acetone group on zeolite it was labeled only in the ketone group because the group are not so intensive. That by admitting methanol, unlabeled methanol, or I must say beforehand unlabeled methanol, the position of the protonized acetone group didn't change. This change is very well can be very well seen when ammonia reacts with protonized acetone. It's shown here. You will see that the protonized acetone, and when we introduce ammonia, this protonized imine-like species is formed with the shift of the signal to this lower values of imine. So, when what's the composition of the products when methanol is introduced? You can compare it with the products from acetone aerobin. You can see that protein is now the highest product, but the other products aren't very much changed. Acetone, isobutene, CO2 aromatics are formed, alene is also formed. In addition, some methyl ether from methanol and some unrelated methanol appear. So now we know that methanol doesn't react with the keto group, and that the composition of the products is not very much changed. But this now the second slide. Yes, that's the reaction of only methanol. Here we can see that the amount of methyl ether is one is much higher. Without acetone species also the amount of methanol is higher, and what's was the largest difference that with only methanol we see a lot of methane. and it isn't seen at all when methanol reacts with the surface species from acetone. So that from that we can conclude that methanol which reacts with acetone surface species. And we have another evidence for it. As I have shown you, when we introduced ammonia to acetone surface species, so the reaction route of only uncondensed species to alene is very much enhanced. So we did the same with acetone, methanol, with ammonia. And we see that here is the reaction acetone is ammonia, acetone is methanol, acetone is methanol is ammonia. In this transparency, I only stress that the formation of aromatics doesn't decrease in comparison with without methanol, and then here appears a new product, butadiene. And this butadiene is another evidence of the alteration of acetone surface species. You see when the acetone surface species, the uncondensed species, is alkylated. So we should obtain methyl ketone. It was also reported in Budapest by Professor I. We know from our previous experiments that when we react methyl ether with ketone, with ZSM-5 isolate, it's immediately dehydrated to butadiene. And when the reaction path by addition of ammonia is restricted to uncondensed species, I have shown that the butadiene appears among the products. And the reaction and without ammonia, we assume that the condensed species, either diacetone alcohol or methyl oxide are methylated with acetone, and this species is converted to toluene and or is back to butene and propylene. Also, the isotopic labeling supports this reaction route. In this case, we do not use labeled acetone but labeled methanol, and we see that the label appears little in isobutene, more in propylene, and especially appears in toluene. Works in agreement with the results of Professor Van who found that in this methylated pyridine, one methanol is incorporated. So it seems us that this alkylation by methanol that this assumption on methylation of acetone surface species can be assumed. And very similar conclusion can be drawn from the interaction of methanol with acetone surface species. Is again the first slide. Again the first slide. The first. Here only to resemble the reaction of acetone alone, and when we add ethanol at low temperature, we obtain this composition of products. You can see that again, protein is the highest, but what's very important then the yield of aromatics is much higher than in the case with only acetone. And we assume in analogy with the experiments with methanol, the condensed species, either diacetyl alcohol or methyl oxide, is alkylated by ethanol, and then this species is very easily aromatized. We don't know whether it's here written as xylene. We don't know whether it is xylene or acylbenzene. We only know that it's some aromatic CDA. When we react only ethanol with ZSM-5 zeolite, practically only acetone is obtained. So we are not quite sure whether we are studying the interaction of ethanol with surface species from acetone or of derivative species acetone. For the reason we performed the same experiments with acetone instead of ethanol, but the composition of products was different, and what was very important that the presence of ammonia suppressed very much the formation of aromatics. And that's our further evidence as that in the reaction of methanol with acetone surface species and methanol with acetone surface species, the presence of ammonia doesn't suppress formation of aromatics. And in opposite to the reaction of acetone alone or of methanol alone or of acetone with acetone surface species. Because the reason seems that the aromatization of either acylated or methylated species is very easy. And without this this is the conclusion of this talk, that we think that acetone surface species are alkylated by these two alcohols, and that the alkylated species undergo very easily the aromatization. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Papers open for discussion.
Is there any indication that you have the methyl plus ion, carbonium ion intermediate formation? Yes.
You see the methyl protonated. We don't. We have some experience with we perform some experience, some experiments with the interaction of alcohols with zeolite, and we found that we think that there is a protonated because the shift from normal physically absorbed methanol in the mass NMR spectra is higher than it should be for normal physically absorbed methanol. But there are three NMR signals, and we think that one is protonated methanol, the second one can be ascribed to methoxy groups, and the step 1 to formation of methyl. And when the amount of methanol is higher than the so what we see is physically absorbed methanol. We are not sure whether this signal about 51 ppm is protonated methanol, but
in the comparison of the products that you get when you run, when you inject acetone alone or acetone plus methanol or acetone plus methanol, did you compare the distribution of aromatics? It seems to me that in the presence of methanol or ethanol, you should get more alkylated aromatics.
Yes.
And that may be an indication that the direct alkylation goes on also, and not necessarily through the intermediate that you suggest.
Yes, with methanol we have obtained more toluene. With ethanol much more C8 aroma.
No further questions, then I think we should stand.